I want to welcome everybody once again to this fourth lecture in a 10-lecture series entitled Rojava, Resistance, Resilience, and Renewal, Democratic Confederalism, and the Changing Face of Revolution. This is a 10-lecture series sponsored by the Global University for Sustainability, by Syria Cooperative Institute, of which I am a co-founder and the moderator of the series, and also the Center for Civil Diplomacy in North and East Syria. The title of our lecture today is Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, Civil Society and Direct Democracy in Rojava. Our guest speaker and presenter is Talaat Younis. He is co-chair of the Executive Council of the Autonomous Administration of the Jazeera region and a lecturer at the Academy of Democratic Politics. And our respondent today is Ashish Kotari. He is co-founder of Global Tapestry of Alternatives. He is an Indian environmentalist working on development, environment interface, biodiversity policy, and alternatives. So the structure of the program today is about 1 hour. We will have the main presenter talk on the subject, and that will be followed by about 20 minutes as a response from Ashish Kotari, and then we will have a period for the remaining portion of the program to take comments and questions from other participants on the webinar. I will be moderating, as I said, and I will let our presenter know 10 minutes in advance of the 1 hour, just so he can be aware of when his time is coming to a close. So with those comments, I would like to once again welcome everybody for taking part in this very important series. And I will now turn over the microphone to our guest speaker. Welcome.
Thank you very much. First of all, my deepest regards to everyone listening to us today. And also, I would like to thank all the organizations and universities that organized this seminar. My name is Talaat Younis. I am the co-chair of the Executive Committee of Jazeera region. And I'm glad to be here today and to be able to talk about our democratic project, about our autonomous administration, talk about it, our practice, and as a project, how we could start this project in the middle of this wartime during the revolution of Rojava, and we are trying to change the system. So now we have a status in North and Eastern Syria, and we are also a hope not only for our region, but also for the other places, other regions under the control of the regime, and beyond that, entire Syria. We can be a hope for the entire country. We call this as a project. It's a democratic autonomous administration project. Beginning of 2000, although we implemented in the beginning of the 2000s, but the idea behind it emerged in 1993 within the Kurdish movement as a solution for the Kurdish problem. And in 2000, it was formulated as a project in 2000, and in 2000 it was within the scope of the trial of Abdullah Öcalan on the İmralı Island. He presented this project in his defense to the court as a project for solution, and for the solution of the Kurdish problem, and as well as for the solution of the other problems in the region. It was an alternative model against the nation state system, and in his defenses, Öcalan wrote further on the democratic civilization and bringing an alternative to the nation state and bringing solution for the Kurdish problem, but also for the other problems that people suffered in the region because of the nation state. Because nation states, they stole the will of the people living under their rule, and they were repressive regimes on the people living in those areas. And as a response to this repressive nation states, Rojava developed this alternative, and our motto at the beginning was autonomous administration, autonomous government for Rojava, and democracy for the people in the region. Democratic autonomy aims at creating a democratic nation based on ethics, morals, and politics. It also promotes the coexistence among all the different diversities in the region, religious, linguistic, ethnic, or all any other differences, diversities can coexist and live in peace. It's based on the unity with their own colors, because nation states always targets the multicultural structure of the society, always try to make them one, and all the existing cultures, they try to melt them. They want to make them disappear and create a one nation based on one language and one culture. So the multicultural structure, or in terms of culture, language, and confession, has always been a target of the nation states, and democratic nation welcomes and celebrates these diversities. And our project doesn't aim at destroying the existing states, rather than it is also sharing, it aims at sharing the real power with the people. Because when we look at the current system, the people are alienated from the politics, and all the decisions are made on their behalf by the others. And that's why the society has been left weak and incapable of making decisions. So we are aiming at returning this power back to the people, and also bringing them to a level where they will be capable of making their own decisions. So this is also an alternative to the state. And the basis of this project is the democratic nation, and I think we will also hear more about it in the course of these seminars. It is also the basis of the foundation of this project. It is the spirit of a democratic nation will bring all the coexistence or peaceful coexistence of all the diversities. Autonomous administration is based on the autonomous structures from the neighborhoods to the districts to the cities or entire region in order to bring the will of the society into the administration. And this every diversity, the diversities we are talking about are also being represented at different levels of this structure. They are part of these autonomous administrations, and they also get empowered to make their own decisions regarding to their own everyday life. These can be political, it can be economic or social decisions about their life. And this society, this is the aim of this project, bring the societies on a level where they can also meet their own decisions, and eventually it will bring a fair representation, active participation of very different groups in the society, and it will also bring a free, peaceful coexistence people in the region. And all these diversities are also encouraged to organize themselves under different names, different structures, because we know that the power was in the past, power were gathered in one certain place, very centralistic approach. Now we break the centralistic structure and we disperse the point of powers in different places. So power is not in the center, but in the neighborhoods, in the districts, and in the different levels of the society. It empowers the society, and a society that decides about their own future also creates a peaceful coexistence. So autonomous administration, it's the embody of this organized society and fair structures in which every part of society can be can participate, and all these different groups can represent themselves in this structure. Everybody is a partner in this administration. Everybody has the right to make a decision about the decisions being taken, depending on their own approach, on their needs, and on their own features and characteristics. In this system, we also preserve the values of these respective societies, and all their values are being preserved, and they are taking part in this structure with their own colors. In 2014, first autonomous administration was founded in Jizre, in Jazeera region, and since the very beginning, all the different ethnic, linguistic, and religions or confessions, they were all part of this administration. And these were the people, these were the different groups that have always suffered under centralistic nation state structures. And it is the first time that they could be a part of an administration with their own colors. And those groups who were stripped of their wills now empowered, and they are being represented in this autonomous administration. And this is something which used to exist before nation states for thousands of years. All these different groups, different societies, they lived together on this soil, on this piece of land, and peaceful. But all these contradictions and problems, conflicts were created with the nation states. So when we go back to since the foundation of the autonomous administration and today, what have we done? At the beginning of the revolution in Rojava and northern eastern Syria, we wanted to create some democratic changes led by this revolution, and the different groups like Assyrians, Arabs, Kurds, and all the different ethnic groups, they gathered on this principle, democratization of the structures. And on the 19th of July, it was the time that we started the revolution, which will be next week. We will be celebrating the anniversary. Regime forces, including their civilian and also military personnel, were sent away from our regions, and the people took power. And that's how the revolution started. And the societies they created, they founded their own organizations. They had their municipalities, they created their organizations, and the youth, they created their own organizations, and they started to regulate their everyday life. And eventually they have their councils, they have municipalities, and they have different committees, and every diversity had a different had a chance to organize themselves, and so that the people became active participants of the administration. So on the 21st of January 2014, the Jazeera region, the first autonomous administration was declared, and all the Assyrian, Syriacs, Circassians, Arabs, Kurds, Muslims, Christians, and Yazidis, including the women organizations and youth organizations, they gathered and they founded this autonomous administration. And they declared their will for living a coexistence based on values and democracy, and that's how the autonomous administration in Jazeera region emerged. And after that, shortly after that, Kobani canton was declared, and after Kobani, shortly after that, the third canton in the region, Afrin canton, was declared, and the same structures also established there. And all these cantons were declared, founded with the participation of all different groups living in those regions. These 3 cantons were founded and survived despite all the attacks and difficulties they faced. And all these 3 cantons have always been under attack from different sides. But because these cantons are based on the will of the society, and because the people had a strong will to govern themselves, they gave us great support to the autonomous administration, and hand in hand they promoted, they developed their administration, because they are also convinced that this is the only solution for the problems that we suffer in the Middle East. Then day by day, all these cantons could empower themselves, develop their capabilities, and then after regions in north and eastern Syria was occupied by ISIS, People's Defense Forces of Rojava, they were also could protect these regions against ISIS brutality. And for that, we also organized self-defense forces in these regions in order to protect themselves against the ISIS attacks. And also, after Manbij was liberated by the People's Defense Forces, then in Manbij was also a council was founded. It was a civil council, and then after Raqqa, which used to be the capital of ISIS, after it was liberated, then there was a civil council of Raqqa, and eventually in Deir ez-Zor and Baghuz, they were the last enclaves of ISIS. After they were liberated, in these regions also civil councils were founded. So now we had these councils in every place on the level of the entire north and eastern Syria. And these different councils also together composes of the north and eastern Syria autonomous region. And all these civilian structures established, founded after liberation of those cities, they also developed their own organizations, institutions, and bodies. And with the participation of the 7 autonomous regions, autonomous regions, in 2018, all these autonomous regions came together and declared the autonomous administration of northern and eastern Syria. And this autonomous administration of northern eastern Syria it includes the representatives from 7 different regions, and these two, despite all the attacks and atrocities against all this project, we are still improving and developing our project as an alternative to the nation states. So it's based on the organizations that all the societies can organize themselves on different bases, and they also respect each other. They respect each other's differences. Because we know that nation-state system brought nothing but conflict among the peoples living in the region. Conflicts based on ethnic ethnicity, based on language, or based on religion. So with the representation and mutual respect, people living in this area became even stronger and powerful. That was the very short description of the autonomous administration, how it started, how it became so bigger and including several different regions. And now I will continue with when we come to the topic, for example, in terms of society, autonomous administration, how it functions at the social level, how it functions within this society. In terms of society, its goal is that every level, every part of the society should be organized based on the democratic confederalism. According to this, nobody can be left out. Every society, every group, and every single person should be a part of these organizations, and they should also exercise their rights, but also comply with their duties. And therefore, it's very important the youth and the women are being organized, and the woman also gets a very different role compared to the past. Now they have the leading role, and the women are playing a significant role in organizing the society. Women, they have their own autonomous organizations, and also we see the women are not getting organized as women's organizations, but also they play an important role within the administration. So within the society, within these structures, the women, they also have these autonomous organizations. And also the youth, who the youngest dynamics of the society, they also play an important role for the construction and reconstruction of these structures. And because we were talking about this political and moral society and working with youth and organizing the youth based on these principles is also the way to create this political and moral society. Everybody will be actively taking part in these structures, and nobody shall be left out. All these social groups, based on their ethnicity, based on their religion, they also organize themselves, and their all rights are preserved. Everybody is free to express their ideas and also be a part of the society. The laborers, organizing the laborers is also important, and there are unities of the laborers and workers, trade unions, And they also organize themselves and also become a part of the administration through these organizations. Also, the families of the martyrs and families of the veterans who paid a high price for this revolution, they also have their own organizations. And they also becomes the symbols of the society, and they also play a leading role in organizing the society. We talked about the will of the society, but how they can also become a will of, and then for that they need to have their, we need education, we need to raise awareness among the people. Therefore, we establish different academies. These academies are for the people to raise their understanding, to raise their awareness, and educate them on these principles. And eventually, this understanding also lets us have a peaceful coexistence and active participation in the administration. And health is also another aspect of this awareness. And in terms of politics, autonomous administration, we reject all the chauvinist politics against the people. We reject them, and the societies should be liberated from their influences. And everybody will have their own political will to make decisions rather than being influenced by this chauvinist politics. Also, the society is also organizing itself through communes and councils, and eventually the people's councils. Everybody is a part of these councils, and they organize themselves on this basis. And the decisions based on the needs and expectations of the society are met by the society itself. All the decisions regarding the life of the people are being made by the people themselves, and this is through the councils and communes and the people's parliaments. This is also improves the capabilities of the society. They do not wait for decisions to be made by the others. They become empowered and capable and make their own decisions. And it's all made by the organized society, by the communes and councils. In entire region, the society organized themselves on democratic values, and every administrations from communes until the parliament, they are all elected in fair elections, and they are also elected by the will of the people. and all the institutions, all the bodies of the administration, they also have this social monitoring. It means the monitoring of the society. The society can have a direct right to audit all the activities of the administration. In terms of law and legal affairs, all the rights and all the freedoms and all the rights of the different societies are also being guaranteed within the social contract, and democratic autonomy is not only a model for the region, also for entire Syria. It can be implemented everywhere in the region. Everybody can adapt and implement these projects in anywhere they are. Because it's based on the making the will of the people visible. That is our proposal for the as a solution for Syria, and it is not only for our region, it's for entire country. And autonomous administration, it's based on the values and the morals of the society. We base our administration on the social morals and values. And in this sense, the society is in the very center of the decisions and the activities of the administration. And autonomous administration, it also have this social justice system. It takes the ecology, freedom of society, and the freedom of women are the core of the social justice system. And self-defense is also another and very important aspect. It is moral and political society should also develop their own self-defense system against all the attacks. And not only in terms of military, but it's beyond that, it should be at every level of the society. A society should be capable of defending itself. And as I said, it's not only about military, but also all other societies. It's also about the awareness and the mentality of the society. As autonomous administration, our all self-defense system is based on defending the society and their achievements and their rights. And it will, this self-defense wouldn't allow anyone to exercise power on this society or diminishing or ignoring the will of the society. Another aspect is culture. The powers, the nation states, they have always imposed one culture on the society, whereas the society is more colorful. So we respect all the cultures and all the colors of the society, and we see them as the richness of our region, because we know that nation states considers consider all these differences, diversities, cultural diversities as a threat, as a risk for its existence. That's why they always target these diversities and try to make them one single color. In our system, everything is based on multiculturalism, and every diversity and their own features and characteristics are protected and also given chance to develop themselves, because we respect all the differences. It's a mutual respect, and every culture has right to develop and protect themselves, preserve themselves. For example, languages used in the administration, there's Arabic, Kurdish, Syriac, and Turkoman languages are all the official languages. Everybody has right to speak their own mother tongue. They have right to get educated in their mother tongue. And we also have different institutions for development of those languages. There are institutions, academies for the development of these languages, and we have different language-based academies where all these different diverse people can a part of it and also represent themselves. And every cultural centers belonging to different ethnic or religious or linguistic groups, they are also autonomous. And there was another problem that we suffered at the time of the regime. They implemented their politics in terms of changing demography. There were so many Arab migrants resettled in the regions, and they are also now a part of this society. And when we come to the economy, economy is also a social economy. Nation states, they see the economy as a tool for their existence. That's why they bring a very strict control on the economy, and it's also very centralized, like the administration. But in our region, our economy is a social economy based on the needs of the society. And it's also all based on the societies, and it's not on serving the interest or benefit of the central state. It's also decentralized. And the women are also playing a very significant role in the economy, which was not the case in the past. And also the distribution also is based on justice and equity. And equality. And the cooperatives are also an important pillar of the economy. The cooperatives are also established based on the needs of the society and also controlled by the society. And in terms of diplomacy, our basis is a civil diplomacy. We have the diplomacy not interstate between states diplomacy, but diplomacy between different groups, and always promoting coexistence and peaceful coexistence, and based on neighborship, and also being a part of the society, like a social values. And social diplomacy, it also brings a dialogue and a free dialogue among all different social groups. And this exchange of ideas, this dialogue also promotes the peaceful coexistence. Autonomous administration protects the rights of all the diversities and guarantees all the diversities in the region. It's not based on one culture, but multicultural structure, and it is valued and protected. And women have a very special place within the administration. Of course, the women are the ones who suffered at most under the nation state system, and the women were enslaved by the nation state and by this patriarchal society. And today, the women are also playing a very significant leading role in terms of destroying this existing system. And with the revolution in Rojava, women have always played a significant role, and they prove that they are powerful and capable and strong-willed in order to change the society, and not only civil society, but also administration, politics, and in the army as well. All the we see the fruit and outcomes of these women-based organizations, how effective they are, and they are very successful. And also, as I said, the dynamics, the youth are taking part in the administration very actively, and also showing their will in order for their will to change the society, and they are also playing a very important leading role, and the representation of the youth are also at every level. We have the youth representation, and we see that how actively they are working and also being successful. And I also would like to now talk to the structure of the autonomous administration and the social contract. Autonomous administration it's based on a it's like a treaty, it's like an agreement to which it has like 7 different autonomous regions and 7 regions. So the Minbij, Afrin, Kobani, Jazire, Raqqa, Deir ez-Zor. Each of these regions, they also have their own social contract. And all these 7 regions, they came together and they established the autonomous administration of northern and eastern Syria. And based on these agreements, that's how the coordination among all these autonomous regions functions. Now we are working on a draft, a draft for the autonomous administration, like a social contract. It is now being drafted, and then it will be presented to the people's councils. And we have three councils in this structure. So it is the General Assembly, it's the legislative, and another council is the executive organ, and the third one is the legislative. The General Legislative Council is where all the laws are made. It is the law-making body within the administration, and all the activities of the Council of Executives and the Council of Legislatives are also being a part of this body. And how it is composed of 7 regions. They all have their representatives, and they send their representatives to the lawmaking body. It is in total 49 persons. And then we also have the experts. There are also certain experts who are part of this body, and so the General Council, the lawmaking body, is composed of 49 representatives coming from 7 different autonomous regions. And at every level, at every council, we have a quota for women. It's 50%. And this is also one of the bases of this system, and 50% quota for women, and also co-chairship system, which means every chairship is composed of 2 persons, 1 male, 1 female, and on the regional level, all the different organizations, they also become the part of these the regional councils. They are Kurds, Arabs, Syriacs, Muslims, Christians, and youth, and also women, and which is 50%. So all these councils are composed of the different representatives of the different social groups. The Council of Executive Council are also elected from the lawmaking body, from the legislative body. And it has its difference. They're called offices, which is like the ministries. It can be the office for economy, office of or department of economy, culture, education, health, or ecology, education, women, youth, department of health, and internal security, and many others. These are all the departments within the Executive Council, including energy and and all these departments are also acting according to the needs coming from the local and regional councils. And the council, or the part of the legal councils, which is it's the jurisdiction, it's the body in charge of the courts, and they are also being elected by the councils. And the autonomy is the main characteristic of this system, because these organizations, and they are all autonomous. As we said, these are all decisions are made on the regional level at the regional councils, and then it goes to the lawmaking body. And I will give you a couple of examples in terms of like practical examples in Jazeera, how the different ethnic groups are taking part. I don't know if we have enough time, or
Yes,
shall we leave it to the questions?
No, it's okay. I'm just giving you a warning. You have 10 more minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah.
The first autonomous administration was in Jazeera. We also have our lawmaking body, we have executive council, and we also have body in charge of the courts, justice. The executive council that I'm the co-chair of it, and I'm a Kurd. I have a co-chair, and she is a Syrian, and I also have the vice president, and he's an Arab. So this is how we structure the executive council. For example, the lawmaking body, they also have co-chair, one Arab, one Kurd, and they have also vice chairs. One is Assyrian and Christian. So all these different ethnic groups and women, it's guaranteed that co-chair system will ensure it. One of them will be a woman, and one of them will be another ethnic group other than the Kurds. And in Jazeera, we have two cantons. One of them is Hasaka Canton and Kamishlo Canton. And each canton, they have their own committees. We mentioned the offices, like on the regional level, we had this Department of Culture, Education, and the same system also applies on these cantons, and they have also offices, office for health, office for education. And there is also a body monitoring the activities of these activities, which is a part of the regional canton lawmaking body, the Jazeera region. And after that, we have the districts, and after districts, we have the municipalities. They also have a similar structure of councils and different offices. And at the bottom, we have communes. This is the very foundation of this system. Communes in the neighborhoods, communes in the villages. This is where all the matters and affairs are being discussed and decided according to the need and will of the people living in that village or in that neighborhood. It is the smallest unit of the autonomous administration. And the commune is the place where everybody becomes a member and they have their rights, they have their duties, and all the different diversities are a part of these communes and they make their own decision. So the decisions come from the commune based on their needs. Any decisions regarding their affecting their life are being met at this communal level by the people. And the executive body is in charge of implementing these decisions made by the communes. And communes also have their own economy bodies. They are like cooperatives. And as I said, the communes are the smallest units of the system, and the members of the communes are they depends on the population living in that area, in that region. But as we said, every part of the society is member of this commune. And the basis of this system, as we are talking about moral and political society, can be realized with this communal approach. Every person is for the society, and the society for every individual. Every individual is for the society. This entire society is for the individuals. So everybody has rights, but also responsibilities. We are also responsible towards the society, and the society is also responsible towards the individuals. This is the relationship that we establish between the individuals and the society. And this can also be realized through this communal structure where the individuals are all part of it. So autonomous administration, at every level, we have this system, commune, and then on different level councils. They have women, we have youth, we have all the different ethnic, religious, or cultural diversities. They are all a part of it, and they're all being represented. In Jizre region, we see that all these different social groups, they are all at every level of the administration, at the army, at the administration. You can see those martyrs. You can see the Arabs, Turkmens, Kurds, and also Assyrians. So everybody is fighting and resisting to protect this system and in order to have a free life. And this system also makes every single person in the society very productive. Everybody plays a different role within the society. I just wanted to very shortly give some examples about the practical implementation of Jazira region. And also I would like to give a couple of examples about the civil society organizations. As we said, autonomous administration is based on this system that the entire society is organized in different civil society organizations. It can be trade unions, it can be unities, and it can be civil society NGOs. So all different groups can also represent themselves through these organizations. And therefore, we also have this system of the union of different civil society organizations, union of trade unions. we have very different various fields where they organize. It can be social, it can be economy, it can be vocation, or these organizations, these unions, all the decisions made by the executive, made by the lawmaking bodies are also being represented by all these different unions. They're also present at the time of the decision making, and we have unions of farmers, union of workers. These their unions are also become a part of this decision making process. Also, and all these NGOs and civil society organizations, they also have their own structures. They have their how they can finance themselves. And these unions of different civil society organizations are also very important for the fair representation within the autonomous administration. They also assume the role of monitoring. They can also observe and monitor the activities of the autonomous administration on behalf of the society. They can criticize and demand a correction and a change. They have this power. And these unions are also have their representatives at the lawmaking bodies. In Jazeera region, we have 101 members, and legislative body of Jazeera region as a parliament or a council for 101, and within this number we also have courts for the different unions, not only for women or youth or the ethnic and religious groups, but also different civil society organizations, laborers, farmers, and all the others. The trade unions and their unions also become a part of the parliament. This is the direct link between the legislative body and the society. So it's very important to organize the society on different level and on under different organizations. The topics that I mentioned about our system, about how like decision making or how the society governs itself. These are the evidence or of a direct democracy, that everybody becomes a part of the administration, everybody has the will, and they are being represented based on this pluralism and multiculturalism, and that's how we have this system that we are implementing today. And thank you very much for listening to me. I don't know if I spoke too much, but
perfect. Talaat, thank you so much. What a fantastic presentation, my friend. You presented a comprehensive, complex architecture for this form of pluralistic, autonomous self-administration. There are so many elements here to think about, and so many questions as well to ask. But I will first ask our good friend Ashish Kotari to present us with his own reflections based on the comments that you made. So Ashish, please, when you're free, take the mic.
Thank you, John. Thanks for this opportunity, and thank you, Talaat Younis, for really very enlightening presentation. I have been following the Kurdish movement for some time now with a lot of colleagues in CDC and other groups, and every time I hear one of your colleagues, including yourself, I am deeply inspired. I think I have 3 or 4 sort of broad comments to make, including adding some experiences of radical democracy from a couple of other places, just to be able to also do some cross fertilization. I think it's really important for us to understand what's happening in the Kurdish Rojava area, but also in other parts of Kurdistan, because we are seeing across the world some sort of a swing towards authoritarian governments, right-wing governments coming back in many parts of the world, left-wing governments kind of struggling to figure out what to do, or leftist forces and powers in general struggling. And we see that liberal democracy, as we have seen it in the last few decades, is failing on many counts. So in that sense, we sort of conventionally have always been presented with this choice between either having this sort of liberal democracies or having authoritarianism or having private sector taking over all the economic functions, etc. And we haven't really thought that there is, in fact, another choice, which is what the Kurdish movement has been taking, which is to have democracy, power on the ground, power actually by the people, which is the original meaning of democracy anyway. And actually we're seeing this we know that the other most well-known example of this is, of course, the Zapatista in what is today called Mexico, where for the last few decades, they have also been practicing autonomous radical democracy and self-determination and autonomy. Many other indigenous peoples in different parts of the world have also been claiming self-determination and managing it in various levels. Here in India, we have a movement for what's called Adivasi or tribal self-rule, where, as an example, in central India, 90 villages have got together to claim self-rule, take back control over their collective commons, including the forests, and negotiate with the government on what that autonomy would mean. We have even some urban examples, city examples, like Christiania in Copenhagen, which is for the last 40 years or 50 years been claiming a space of anarchy and local decision-making. Now, what I think is very important from all of these examples is that what they're saying is democracy is not only about elections, which is unfortunately what they've been reduced to in most parts of the world. So we all wait for 4 years or 5 years and see, okay, if the current party in power is not doing the right thing, we try and elect another party in place without actually claiming the power on the ground, which is, as I said, ours. But I think what all of these movements are also saying is not just about claiming power on the ground, but also exercising that power with responsibility. And in that sense, the Indian notion of what we call Swaraj, Mahatma Gandhi brought back during the independence struggle in India against the British colonial rule, is about freedom, autonomy, self-determination, but with responsibility towards other people's freedom and well-being. And as we've extended, actually other species also. So the rest of the earth, not just human beings. We also know that none of these initiatives is secure, that the larger the macro system of nation-state domination, of capitalism, patriarchy, racism, and so on, is always threatening these initiatives. We know that, of course, there's a lot of violence in the Kurdish area by the Turkish state and others. But in all of the examples I've given you, there is, in that sense, none of them can kind of sit back and say, okay, now we're safe and secure and we can do other things. So there's always a constant struggle against the macro forces. which I think really requires us to link up these sorts of movements all across the world, movements of resistance against these mega forces, but also movements of constructive alternatives, such as what Havel Younis has told us. Movements that are both in the global south, but also in the global north, movements that are in villages, but also in cities, movements across different cultures, right? And different sectors and sections of working, whether it's the economy or society or agriculture or education or health or whatever. And I think, again, from all of these points of views, what Comrade or what Havel Younis has told us is really, really important to be able to make those connections. I also think it's very important for us to realize the intersectionality of life, which again comes out very clearly in the Kurdish movement. And at this stage, if I can, I just wanted to quickly share one image that we have been using for some of these initiatives in different parts of the world. Can you see this?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. This map is just to basically show that there are, lots and lots of such examples. But this is what I wanted to show. So if you actually look at what Havel Younis has described to us, if you take that top right-hand side sphere, it is really, as he said, about claiming autonomy. It is, as he said, I think the smallest unit, the commune, the village, the local commune, etc., is in fact the basis of power. It is the most powerful, not the one right on top, which unfortunately is what our nation states are all about. But along with that, also claiming control over the economic means of production, localizing the economy as far as possible, so you're not dependent for your basic needs in long distances, creating the possibilities of social justice between genders, between ethnicities. It's amazing, for instance, how he was explaining how the co-chair system between a man and woman, but also between a Kurd and a non-Kurdish ethnicity. Then also bringing in the crucial elements of language. Other colleagues of Havel Younis have spoken about the importance of re-establishing and reasserting Kurdish language, but also a number of other language and cultural diversities in their region, and the same with anywhere else in the world. The commoning of knowledge, also the commoning of not just physical properties and nature and land, but also the commoning of language, of knowledge systems against the privatization that's taken place. And of course, all of this based on fundamental ecological resilience. And again, I'm sure other colleagues of his have spoken about the philosophy of genealogy, the revolution of the women's revolution, which is also very centrally based on ecological principles. What we also find, I think, in the Kurdish movement and many others that I mentioned, is that at the core of this, what we call flower of transformation, is a set of ethics and principles. And I think in one way or the other, Havel Younis kind of spoke about many of these. So I'm not going to go into any detail, but I really think that it's very important that we are able to show how these sorts of ethics and values and principles, whether it's in the Kurdish movement or the Zapatista or the Adivasi indigenous movement in India and elsewhere, is how these are actually fundamentally opposed to the currently dominant system, which is about selfishness, privatization, inequality, etc., and how they can actually be practiced on the ground through the sorts of examples that we've just heard. So as I mentioned, I think one of the biggest issues is how do we kind of link up these sorts of radical alternative movements and resistance movements around the world. And of course, we have forums like the World Social Forum and others, which are very important. But also what we feel is that there's a need to collaborate on radical alternatives. And I'm very happy that 3 of the core units of the Kurdish movement are part of the global tapestry of alternatives, which began in 2019, to try and make these linkages, to share with each other, to be able to have much more collaboration, joint actions, support each other in times of threats and need, create global solidarity, etc. And so I think I'm going to end with that. I just wanted to maybe put 2 challenges also, which Havel Younis could perhaps address. One is that as we link from the local to the regional to the national to the global in terms of governance. Abdullah Öcalan, for instance, has spoken about a world democratic confederalism instead of the United Nations. As we do that across different scales, how do we ensure that the so-called higher scales, the representative units of democracy, don't concentrate power? That power doesn't actually go away out of the local communes and into the hands of the larger councils, etc. That's one of the biggest problems we have all over the world, right? So how do we ensure that? How is the Kurdish movement actually ensuring that? And the second challenge also is that within each of these communes, and across them, there will be conflicts. There are always, because of historical reasons, differences, inequalities, ethnicities, etc. There are conflicts that are always taking place. How are those conflicts actually dealt with in the Kurdish movement? So I just wanted to put a couple of these challenges to Havel Younis in case later on he wants to respond. But thanks a lot again for this opportunity. Wonderful to be sharing this space with you all.
Fantastic, Ashish. Thank you so much for that. In a sense, your synthetic perspective on the issues that were raised in the talk. And I really do appreciate your sharing those slides, the maps and your sort of configuration of the overlapping elements of the system that you described. And we're going to try, I think, and make those available. If you could share those with us, perhaps send them over to Jade or Kinching, and we'll see if we can include them for everybody else to use them as a reference. So thank you for all of that. And so let me just turn the mic over back again to our friend Talaat to respond to your two questions.
Thank you for the questions. In terms of the mentality of society or the nation states and its effect on these societies, we still feel that influence in every part of life, in every part of the society, among different ethnic groups, or not recognizing or not accepting the others. It's still a problem. For example, this is a problem between the Kurds and the Arabs, because the regime always introduced Kurds as the enemies to the Arabs, and the Kurds always considered the Arabs as enemies because of the dominant nation state. So these kind of conflicts, they still exist. It is a result of this politics that these people were imposed for decades. But the region that we live, before the nation states, they could live together for thousands of years, and based on this, in the spirit of the brotherhood and sisterhood, the sisterhood. So all these conflicts were introduced by the nation states. Sometimes we face this kind of conflicts because people are still not free of this former state ideology, and they are still influenced. If you can see on this personal level, individual levels, we face it. But how do we deal with these kind of situations, or what will be the solution? It's all about the mentality. It's all about the mindsets. Therefore, we focus on this changing the mentality, because this revolution is a revolution of mind, and we need to change our mindsets in every different aspect. And education also is a very important tool to purify ourselves from these chauvinistic, nationalistic nation-state policies and also change our mindsets. Therefore, at every communal level, we also have academies for education. So communes, they also assume the role of education. On weekly basis, they have their own seminars. And all these problems that occur, the communes, we also have communes for they have a department of reconciliation. All these conflicts that may occur are all dealt by the reconciliation committees. But as I say, the main reason, the reason behind it is the mindset and not respecting and accepting each other. But once all these differences are they become a part of this administration, we made a great step. We changed because now everybody can see it. The Kurds and the Arabs, the Syrians, they can be a part of the same council and they work together, and we will not face there is no need for hostilities. And these people are not hostiles. We used to be our neighbors. We have lived on the same soil for thousands of years. So we did it, and we can do it also in the future. We celebrate together, we share, we mourn together. So these are all the everyday life that now people can see it in the everyday life. That's how we fight against this chauvinistic state ideology, bringing people together and seeing each other and working together changes all their mindset. On power relations or representation of this democratic confederalism, it's also about having their own relationships or improving their relationship. Now, actually, we started with the different places in Syria, for example, out of our northern and eastern Syria. There are different places in Syria that they also want to adapt this system. They want to have their relationships, they want to learn about it. And they want to weaken the power of the state in their own regions by using and bringing this democratic confederalism system. But we know that the hegemonic systems, they always divide the people. They alienate them, they divide, and they control easier. But that's what we mentioned, the importance of the civil diplomacy. All the different people who are divided by the hegemonic powers, now we know each other, we get to know each other, and we come closer. For example, women, doesn't matter in which country they live, they have their own connection anyway. So they can organize themselves and bring their power together. And we consider it very important to reach out to other people, other places, and it will also it will give us strength. And a solidarity with Rojava, we expect this from the society. We are not expecting from the states, but different societies, different peoples living in the world. We have the hope, we expect a support from the civil society, because so far we also have observed that there was so much solidarity with the revolution in Rojava from the civil society that was also evidence that we are being seen and also being supported, and that's what maybe the other people also need. Thank you.
Talaat, thank you for those responses. I have one question I'd like to put to you. What you've described is basically a comprehensive approach to try and not only change civil and political institutions, but also perspectives, attitudes. And you mentioned, for example, the creation of these academies that are intended to provide an education and a development of these values in people that are expected to play a role in the administration of the system in Rojava. The question I have is this: because it is so comprehensive, because there's an expectation that everyone take part, to what extent can some people feel that it is a form of coercion or a form of expectation and compulsion to participate in these systems, or to participate in the political academies, or to adopt the worldview of democratic confederalism? Because any system can become hegemonic. Even the ideology of democratic confederalism can be imposed if it is done in an authoritarian or in a compulsive manner. So this is a question I am asking. How do you manage this freedom of the individual to choose to participate, to become responsible, to engage politically, or the freedom not to engage?
As a system, as a project, it's body and practice of the autonomous administration. It's the attitude for freedom. It's a free attitude. It can be. It's based on the free unity. It's the free unity. It's a unity based on free will of different ethnic groups, religious groups, and societies and individuals. So we said everybody should be organized. Everybody should be a part of an organization. It can be civil society organization. They are laborers, they are farmers, trades. If not, they can become of the commune. So, and at the end, they will share their will within the commune. So this, once you are part of this commune, then you are also become the part of the decision-making process. And in Rojava, there are some political Kurdish groups, and they have other projects. They don't want to be part of the democratic confederalism. They didn't want to be part of this autonomous administration, despite all the initiatives, and we had dialogue with the different political parties. We asked them, we invited them to come and become the system. They didn't want it, because we tried to explain how important it is that everybody becomes a part of this administration. But they reject it, so they are not a part of the administration. So as I said, this participation is voluntarily. It's based on the free will. But day by day, we reach out more people, we convince more people to become a part of it. And because the people see it, once they are out of the communes and they are out of the system, and they cannot make their decisions. So it's they once they see that they have this power and they can make their decisions themselves, it encourages more people to become a part of it. And now we see that people are suggesting, proposing themselves to be part of it, and then they come voluntarily. But as we said, it's voluntarily. Everybody is
Okay.
free to be a part of it or not to be a part of it.
Ashish, you raised your hand. You have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick one to add to what Havel Younis said. I think in urban society, industrialized urban societies, there's been so much individualization and this thing of my own private space, that this kind of thought that I don't want to participate in constantly in meetings and things like that. And of course, it's a legitimate worry. But we've seen across in so many of these, including right now, I'm actually sitting in Germany for a couple of weeks, and I'm seeing in some of the communes that are emerging, the new ones that are emerging, the intentional communities that are coming up, is that as people see that they actually benefit significantly from being part of community processes, that in fact they might even have more time because their children somebody else is looking after, or some other needs are actually being looked after by the community. There is the spirit of wanting to actually get involved rather than wanting to stay out. And I think that's a very, very important transformation that happens in the newer context also, but coming back to some very old ways of living, but in new contexts. So I think that's important to recognize, while of course still giving the freedom if somebody doesn't want to.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic, this tension between individual freedom to choose, to engage, or to not engage. Maybe the fundamental political question. But I want to open up the floor now to other people that would like to share a question or a comment. If you have a question or a comment, just put it in the chat, and we'll see if we can get some responses to you. So the floor is open, please. Others that would like to pose a question, please do so. Okay, here's a question. Michelle Bideovich, I think, is asking, despite the influence of Murray Bookchin on Öcalan, how actually influential is the anarchist element in society building in Rojava, and how strong are other ideologies or ideas or theories on everyday functioning of the people there?
Mr. Öcalan, in his writings, and he's now being kept in an heavy isolation in prison, but with his thoughts, with his philosophy, he had an influence on the people, and his proposal for solution, it is the democratic nation. So those who are familiar with Öcalan's ideas, who recognize, who understand, and who also live those ideas, it's in the north and eastern Syria. Now the Arabs or the Assyrian Syriacs, they also consider this project as a solution, as a salvation for the problems. And the women, especially the women, they consider it that they were neglected, they were repressed, and now today we see the women are very visible, they have their own will. So this was also, and the ideas of Öcalan that we are talking about is no longer belonged to Öcalan only. It belongs to the entire societies living in the northern eastern Syria. So even Öcalan is now physically kept in a prison, but now in Rojava, we said now he's known, his ideas are being read and understood and discussed. And we see that Öcalan, through his writings, he has still free in his mind, and he has become a hope for the region, for everyone living in the region. And it seems to be the hope for everyone living in the region.
Okay, thank you for that. I have another question here. Jonathan Espinoza is asking, how can NGOs from outside Rojava participate and support the work that is going on there? And whether English proficiency is widespread, or just exactly what would be the possibility for foreign NGOs to become active in support of the work you're doing.
Civil society organizations and they are, as we said, they are all autonomous and they're organized, and the trade unions, civil society organizations, they can get in touch with different organizations in Europe or abroad. Then they can also get in touch with other unions, improve their relationships, and support each other in terms of raising capacity building, or the practice here. In many different ways, it's easily they can get in touch and they can start joint initiatives or joint projects, or whatever they want to support or learn about here.
Talaat, would they get in touch through the Center for Civil Diplomacy? Would that be the route?
Sure.
Okay.
And we will be even happy to do it. We will be happy to, if we could improve our relationships and the cooperation, we'll be very happy to provide it and facilitate it and we can also put those organizations in touch with the organizations they want to reach, or in the similar fields. So we will be happy to do that.
Yes, Jonathan is asking maybe for some examples. I can give one example. Some years ago, for example, I connected an organization in the UK, the Social Economy Alliance, with some groups directly in Rojava, and they came and they did some capacity building, some technical support for water systems, for example. And that was a direct relationship between an NGO, civil economy organization in the UK that I was aware of, and they had a direct relationship with some groups in Rojava. So that is simply one example that actually was, I think, very productive in terms of developing and designing and managing water systems. And that's just, one example. Now, there is a further question from Les Levido, and it is, how has the autonomous administration dealt with interfamilial and political conflicts within the population? And what have been the knowledge exchanges with similar experiences and movements elsewhere? For example, there's a Zapatista autonomous communities in Mexico.
اگر دوباره ببخشید.
All the social problems, it can be interfamiliar or other levels. We try to solve those problems within the communal structure. I mentioned the committees of reconciliation. They are dealing with several different problems or conflicts, and they get involved and they talk to the parties, so the different, and not only political issues, but also familiar issues are all being dealt by the reconciliation. And just an example, that's how the society welcomes solving problems on a social level rather than going to a court, for example. We have public houses. We have there are the commune meets. We also have these reconciliation committee, and they have this. We have court houses where you can take your case and go to the judge. But rather than going to the court, people comes to the communes and our reconciliation committees, and they accept their decisions or they accept the outcome. And it's more influential among the society rather than going to a court. These are of course the social problems, and because social justice, social peace should come from the society itself. It shouldn't be based on a decision made by a court, because the society finds a solution. We had problems, we had feuds. We had different feuds among the tribes for decades. They have been to the court several times. It wasn't solved. And all remained unsolved. But once the reconciliation committees were involved, within a very short period of time, they convinced the parties, they convinced the people, and then they found a solution. And the solution seems to be sustainable than a decision made by a court. Because it's a thing about moral, it's a thing about the social relationships. At the communal level, or at the council levels, on every level, we also have these special committees for reconciliation and solving problems among the society itself.
Thank you for that. We have about
I think you had another problem, or
oh no,
problem?
Yes, there was a second question about the connection between the Rojava movement and for example the Zapatistas in Mexico or other movements like this.
We have been contacted also by several different circles, organizations. They want to learn about our experience in Rojava, and also they also want to support our experience here. And we have some connections. We try to organize. We have the solidarity committees, and we are developing them as much as we can. And we also have this And we also have these relationships and contacts with everywhere in the world looking for alternatives. We want to reach out more and learn more, and we also want them to learn from us, from our experience. And we are very open for this kind of cooperations and connections. After all, it is looking for alternatives, and it's about promoting, developing democracy and freedoms.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So we have a few minutes left. All of this exchange, the questions and answers, will be part of the recording that will be saved. So one of the listeners asked about that. I have another question from Jonathan. It says, if there's time and no other questions, are there any final reflections from either Talaat Younis or Ashish Kotari about the power dynamics of foreign NGOs supporting the Kurdish struggle? He is thinking about horizontality, democratic confederalism, decolonialism, etc. But the question is, as a donor or as a foreign NGO, how to avoid reproducing the unequal North-South power dynamics that sometimes happen when NGOs become involved in these kinds of movements. Ashish, do you want to respond to that?
After Talaat, if he's responding.
Okay, Talaat, go ahead, please, if you like.
You would like to answer the question? All the NGOs, all the organizations that would like to support or help Rojava, or those organizations coming and visiting us here, or who are starting relationships with us, we have some principles. We would like to also show them the truth of this project. So they should also understand how these people in the middle of this so much violence and war, they started this revolution, and despite all the difficulties, that they are living this revolution. But of course, despite all these difficulties, we cannot develop as much as we want, and there are also hostiles who want to prevent this project. Therefore, it's also important for us to have this support, international support, where we have so many people are coming, visiting, they make promises, but in terms of practical steps, implementation, we don't see much. They talk to us, we share what we need. We, as a democratic autonomous region, we made a call to the international community as well to have, further diplomatic relationships. But despite all the promises, all the meetings and things, we don't see much of them. But our relationship is always based on a principle.
Okay, thank you for that. Ashish, some final reflections or thoughts from you as well?
Yeah, no, I think Jonathan's question is a very, very important one, because we continue to have very colonial relationships in terms of even wanting to come and help the northern NGOs wanting to come and help the southern NGOs. So I think, Jonathan, you got it absolutely right in terms of not reproducing those power dynamics. And there are two things I can think of. One is that when the Kurdish movement or any other such movement anywhere in the world calls for support, solidarity, like signing on to statements or in some other form expressing solidarity, then of course we should be there to do that, but at the calling of the movement itself. And the second crucial thing is, how can we question the complicity of our own spaces, our own governments? If we are a European, for instance, how have European governments treated the Kurdish movement? We know that it's very, very awful treatment. So how do we raise those issues within our own countries and demand that the governments we're part of, or the countries we're part of, actually recognize the Kurdish movement for what it is, not a terrorist organization, but a legitimate freedom movement. So I think it's also not necessarily always going there and doing things with them, but also looking at our own situation. And that's with the Kurdish movement. But if you think of the global climate crisis or anything else, what is the complicity, the role of our own northern governments and people, consumption patterns, in creating the kind of global problems that are being created? And then what do we do back home, rather than always thinking of what do we do where the problem is taking place?
True. We are nearing now, I guess, almost exactly the 2-hour mark. So I wanted to take this moment here to thank our guest speaker, Talaat, and our respondent, Ashish. I think it was a really, really interesting, in-depth, rich discussion. So much information has been conveyed about the complexities and the dynamics of actually establishing this kind of democratic confederalist architecture in Rojava. So I think there's so much more to learn. So thank you so much for both of you taking part in this fourth of our series. And thank you for the questions and the participants that also took part and posed such interesting questions. I think they also added a lot of depth to our discussion.